Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, building experiences that connect, remove friction, and deliver insights. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Mila Grigg. Mila Grigg is the founder and CEO of Moda, one of the most recognized branding groups in the United States. With 20 years in the field, Mila's expertise in building personal brands, growing leadership equity, and crafting marketing and social media strategies comes from her experience, not opinion or observation. From executives at Fortune 100s to first-time entrepreneurs and everything in between, Mila has helped leaders in various backgrounds and organizations of all sizes create, communicate, and profit from their brands. Her book, Forged by Fire, How to Develop an Unstoppable Personal Brand, was released in October of 2022. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Mila.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, first off, why do you do what you do?
Oh gosh, to help people be their best. And I know that sounds incredibly cheesy, but truly that's it. If I can help people to find their purpose and be their best and be seen, that's a winning day.
Well, and that leads to a conversation about your book, Forged by Fire, How to Develop an Unstoppable Personal Brand. So tell me about your book.
Yeah, so really two parts. Forged by Fire has a bit of my personal story, and I know that I'm a big nobody when it comes to like, why would we want to know your personal story? And really, the Forged by Fire part was to allow the audience and the reader to realize that I've built a brand through an immense personal trial. And then from that chapter 1, chapters 2 through the end, it really is how do you build a personal brand, really step by step. So the things that you don't necessarily think of, there are books about leadership and books about communication, and they really take that one topic and go and do a deep dive. And I've recommended them throughout the book. But this book has them all under one umbrella. So it allows you to see what you might be doing well, what you might be doing poorly, and then to really, hone in on, hey, I think I speak well, but do I have emotional intelligence? Or I present well, but can I read an audience? And do I know my core values? So really from A to Z, how do you build a brand, including how do you share those stories online? So how do you build a social media brand? And how do you, even if you're a doctor, how do you build a brand for your practice? And how do I use things like TikTok in order to get the message out there of who I am, my value, my worth, and then to be seen versus skipped over for those opportunities?
And let me ask you what might be a deceptively simple question, but what do you mean when you say personal brand?
Yeah, it really, so if we get off of this podcast and you have things to say about me that aren't the best, if you say, well, she was 7 minutes late, which I was, if you tell people, things about me that are what you think, that's my brand. I don't own it. I can do the best that I can to share a story about myself and to bond and all of those things, but it really is how you describe me. So your brand is how people describe you when they hear you, see you, or read something that you've written, and how they share that story, that message of who you are as your brand. There's an old, saying that I've heard a million times now, reputation is something that happens to you. Brand is something that you can be intentional about. So how you share your story, really the brand issue that I find most of the time are people think I don't have to build it because I'm behind the scenes. I'm not seen. Brand is always, it's whether you're behind the scenes and you're the COO and you're not really in front, or you're brand new out of college, or you're the CEO looking to retire going, do I really have a great legacy? It's what people think about you when you're not in the room and how they share your story.
And to just finish the story, you did let me know that you were going to be late, which I appreciated, and apologized without excuse, which I thought was great. So thank you for that.
Oh,
but
thank you.
What I wanted to run something by you, and because I think this is important for even people who aren't necessarily entrepreneurs. You mentioned you work with companies that are Fortune 100s and first-time entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, they're building a personal brand, but people who are working in Fortune 100s, there's already a brand for that company. So the question is how do you go about building a personal brand in it? And I think this is the idea that came to me a while ago, curious as to your thought. It's almost like your personal brand is like you're a recording artist back in the day when they used to sign for a record with a record label. And the company you work for is that record label. So it's kind of thing like it was great that Columbia had Bruce Springsteen, right, as there. So is that similar to what you're talking about when
Yes.
you can build a personal brand even within an organization that has perhaps one of the top 100 brands?
Yes, absolutely. And companies are now paying people, are really paying for brands more than they are, even experience. I've seen people get hired at companies who have much less experience than somebody else, but their personal brand is stronger. They represent the company much more completely cohesively. So in a way that represents the company online, ringing the bell recently for a client at the New York Stock Exchange. Should that person have been there based upon experience? Yeah, but were there more experienced people to fill that role? Yes, 100%. So people oftentimes will say, I have experience and I have all of this education and I should just be in that role. And my answer is, yeah, but your brand is terrible. And quite frankly, the company wants your brand to build the corporate brand in a way that brings the company more value. So that's where people really get confused. So companies are paying to build personal brands, and they're paying. It's why we pay an athlete so much money it's why Peyton Manning Nationwide pays all that money for Peyton Manning. His brand builds the brand of Nationwide, allowing people to make a connection personally, emotionally, and they want to be close to his success, So your brand walks into a room before you do, and it certainly precedes you on LinkedIn. And companies want a strong brand to represent them. And sometimes they're willing to forego things like education and experience to do that.
And as a comedian said to him during a roast, Peyton Manning is the Tom Brady of commercials. Which I thought was fantastic. But
there it is. It's true.
There it is. That kind of sums it up. And Mila, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours, and why are they a hero?
Man, okay. So you asked me a personal question. I'll answer it personally. I think I don't have an earthly hero. I think there are many things that people have done, and I just go, wow, that's incredible. But my faith is the biggest thing in my life. So the book that I read the most is the Bible. And I would say second to that, there are 8 books that I mentioned inside of mine that I love. And I've probably read 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. I would be honestly saying like around 20 to 25 times. But every day I live my life, and I try to live it through how Jesus would live his life, and try to be more like him every day, even though I fail every single day, in the biggest ways you can imagine. But I guess that would be the only hero that I really have. And then every other hero I've mentioned in the book. And, John Maxwell is one of those big time heroes for me.
And lastly, Mila, how can somebody contact you?
Yeah, the website would be great. Thank you for even asking. modaimageconsulting.com. And I'm, every way you can get in touch online and on socials on there.
All right. Mila Grigg, the author of the book Forged by Fire, How to Develop an Unstoppable Personal Brand, and we will put a link to that book in the show notes. Founder and CEO of Moda, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.